Hello, it is February 23rd, 2017. I'm here with Mr. Emil Cromwell, a member of the Havre Grace Colored School Foundation and a man who saw the ugliness of segregation firsthand. Today, he's going to be talking about his experiences growing up in the era of segregation, particularly in going to an all-colored school. And so, Mr. Cromwell, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Good day. My name is Mr. Emil Cromwell. I'm a 1961 graduate of Havre Grace Consolidated School in Swan Creek, Maryland. I have a Bachelor of Arts degree from Maryland State College, now University of Maryland Eastern Shore. I have a master's degree in elementary education from City College of New York. I have a master's degree from City College in New York in reading. I have done advanced graduate work in the field of special education and administration supervision at Morgan State University in Baltimore, Maryland, and at Coppin State University in Baltimore, Maryland. I'm an educator, and I taught school in New York City, Brooklyn, New York, South Bronx, Brownsville, Fort Greene in elementary education, secondary education, special education. I'm also a licensed practical nurse. I spent 3 years in the regular Army as a medical specialist. I served in Europe, France, and Germany. I've spent 8 years in the Army Reserve as a licensed practical nurse. I have experience as a nurse at various facilities, one being the Veterans Administration Hospital in Prairie Point, Maryland. As you can see, in spite of the fact of attending all black schools, it did not affect all the things that I wanted to accomplish in my life. I decided to let you know where I am at this point, and then I will go back and give you some history of growing up in Havre Grace and Harford County. I want it to be clear that whatever I say, we as a people, as children growing up in Havre Grace, Maryland, Harford County, we were always taught love, and we were always taught to leave a legacy of love and not hatred. In spite of some of the educational disadvantages we had by not receiving the necessary resources, educational materials, the only thing that did was limited our ability to take part in athletic activities like football and basketball, baseball, track and field. In spite of that, we were able to accomplish a lot of those goals. When we graduated from the colored schools, we were able to go on and compete at the college level. I attended the Havre Grace Colored Elementary School, which was located right At that time, it was referred to as Freedom Alley, but it's now referred to as Freedom Lane. It was a 2-story building. We had dedicated teachers who always told us to do our best. Our education was founded on spirituality and love and respect of ourselves and our fellow man. Havre Grace is a small community. In spite of that, we had the 2 educational systems, one for the colored students and one for the white students. We were referred to as colored back in those days, even though we knew that we were children of African descent. So the term that I will be using now is colored, because that's what we were described as being back then, even though we knew who we were and who we are. I do not refer to my school as being segregated. If my school was segregated, that means that the white school was also segregated. We attended school at one point. We attended school at a facility called the Elks Home on Stoke Street, which is no longer there. I'm gonna give you a little brief history on the growth of the color school system in Havre Grace. In 1910, there was a white frame building structure on the corner of Alliance Street and Stoke Street. But prior to that, there was a facility referred to as the Anderson Institute on Linden Lane in Havre Grace. As a result of that and the growth of the population of the African community, the white frame building structure was built to accommodate the children in the area at that time. Due to the promotion of several outstanding leaders in our community, they petitioned the Harford County Public Schools to build another structure. And in 1930, a 4-room brick building was erected adjacent to the existing 1910 white framed building structure. Prior to that, the children at that time weren't afforded a high school education. The lower grades of the school met at a variety of locations, as I said earlier, including the Chesapeake Lodge that was existing at that time on Stoke Street in Havre Grace. When the school was located on Alliance and Stokes, we didn't have a track. So what the elders of our community did in their ingenuity, they designed lanes on a line street in the road to give us an opportunity to heighten our track skills. Because when you ran track, you had to stay in your lanes when you exchanged the baton. If you didn't, you would be disqualified. So this gave us an opportunity to enhance our ability in running track. And as I said, we didn't have a track. We didn't have a basketball court. We had a makeshift basketball court where we had, we had a wooden backboard, and on that wooden backboard, we had peach baskets. And that's where we learned to play basketball. We had some men in the community who were employed at the VA hospital in Perry Point. And sometimes they took us there to practice our skills in the gym. And at the same time, we were able to go out on Aberdeen Proving Ground and play basketball in the gym. In spite of that, we had young men and women from our community to go on to college and to do well in the areas of basketball, football, track. A lot of the materials that we were given, as I said earlier, were hand-me-downs from the white school. The books we received weren't new. All of these books were from the white school. What laboratory equipment that we got was from the white school. All the hand-me-down material they sent to us. They didn't send us new material. In spite of that, that didn't hinder us from excelling, because our elders always stressed to us the importance of an education and learning. My father always said it was better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So that motivated us to excel in all our areas. We were very fortunate. We had teachers who had advanced degrees. During that time in the state of Maryland, blacks were not allowed to attend College Park to get advanced degrees. So the state of Maryland gave our teachers the opportunity to get advanced degrees outside of the state. The state paid for these master's degrees. Some of our teachers got master's degrees from Temple University, NYU, and wherever they could go, because once again, the state would pay them because they didn't want our teachers to get any advanced degrees at College Park. At that time, blacks were not allowed to attend College Park. But that didn't hinder our teachers from going out and excelling and bringing that knowledge back to us. Growing up as a young man, Havre Grace, as I said earlier, was a very small community. And when baseball was introduced in the community, the black boys and the white boys played on baseball teams together. So we socialized to a limited degree on the baseball field. But as far as the school system was concerned, it was still a colored school and a white school. There was a movie in Havre Grace, and at one point, the black people, African Americans, during that time called colored people, had to sit upstairs, and the white people sat downstairs. The ironical thing about that is, today, the upstairs is considered a balcony. But during that time, due to segregation, blacks weren't allowed to sit downstairs with the whites. But once again, and now, in this day and age, it costs more to sit up in the balcony than it does to sit down below. So in their infinite wisdom, they were giving us, I guess you would say, upper class seating as opposed to them. As I said, the black children played baseball together. We saw each other. But when it came to socializing after that point, there was no socialization after that point. I imagine there were some young black boys who they thought were close white friends, maybe spent more time with them. But we had our own little community here. We had our stores. I remember 2 hotels. We had a hotel called Johnson Hotel. And we had another hotel. It's a gentleman by the name of Mr. Jim. We call him Mr. Jim. Had a hotel. And since we couldn't ride in the white taxi cabs, Mr. Jim had a taxi business. So we had our taxis, we had our hotels, and we had our stores, and we had our churches. We had a Masonic temple, which we still have today. And we had the Elks Home. And at one point, we even had a drum and bugle corps. One of the best drum and bugle corps, probably, I know, in the area. And we had my block of Alliance Street. Everybody knew everybody. And every home was a safe home. And when you got home from school, if your parents weren't there, you could go to your neighbor's home and wait till your parents got there. So we had a close-knit community. As I said earlier, the disadvantage that we had is that we weren't afforded the materials and the equipment to accelerate our pace of learning. That didn't stop us from learning. And the misconception that people have of this so-called integration is that black children had to go to white schools and sit next to white children to learn. But that was never our intent. All we wanted was to have the same opportunities and the same materials as the white children had. And we knew that it wasn't necessary for us to sit next to white people to learn, because we learned in spite of the fact of not attending school with them. This is why I started out by explaining to you who I am, all the opportunities that I had with my advanced degrees. And I have 4 sisters and a first cousin, all attended African American schools in Havre Grace. They all have advanced degrees. One sister has a doctorate degree, and my sisters have master's degrees, and my cousin has an MBA. In spite of the fact of the white powers to be in Harford County tried to hinder us from learning, but that didn't stop us. And we attended the colored school on Alliance Street up until 1955. Due to the size of the black community, it was necessary to build another facility. During that time, along Route 40, the Route 40 corridor, the different black communities had their own little schools, what they call colored schools, in Edgewood, Aberdeen, Swan Creek. All had their little schools that they attended. And as I said earlier, in 1930, when the brick building was built to accommodate the black students with a high school education, one of the facilities that helped us in that process was the St. Matthew's AUMP Church on Revolution Street. And our wood shop was located at in the basement of St. Matthew's. Also, we had music classes that we took at St. Matthew's, and graduation ceremonies and special ceremonies that we took at St. Matthew's. The principal back in the 30s was a man by the name of Mr. Leon S. Roy. And Mr. Roy attended Lincoln University in Pennsylvania. One of our favorite stories. Mr. Roy always said that I'm going to bring Langston Hughes here. If you don't know who Langston Hughes is, he was a renowned African American writer. One day, and we always said, "Oh, Mr. Roy, you don't know Langston Hughes." Yeah, he did. He was Mr. Langston Hughes' roommate at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania. And they both belonged to the illustrious Omega Psi Phi fraternity. So we were blessed because of the experiences that we got from our teachers. And there were a lot of prominent African Americans in the community who were advocates for our education. One gentleman was the name of Mr. Clayton Stansbury, and another gentleman, Mr. Vandalia Williams, were advocates for the education of the children in Harford County. And they were instrumental in establishing a countywide parent-teacher association for colored schools. And they petitioned to have the brick building constructed in 1930 to give the children of the community an opportunity to attend school past the elementary level. When the school was built, the high school was built, at that point, it still only went up to the 11th grade. The powers to be in Harford County, the white people felt as though it wasn't necessary for black children to have a 12th grade education. So those who wanted a 12th grade education had to go elsewhere. Baltimore City, Philadelphia, wherever they could go. And it wasn't until 1949. 1949 was the last class to graduate from the Havre Grace College School up to the 11th grade. And after that point, those who graduated were afforded a 12th grade education. The first principal that they had at that school prior to Mr. Roy was a man by the name of Mr. Emil Cromwell, who was my grandfather. And it was Mr. Emil Cromwell. There was a man by the name of Mr. Noble and Mrs. Caswell, who were educators at that school, and they, out of love, they instructed the students without pay. That's why I said earlier that what I'm saying has to do about love and not about hatred. The things that were done to us in Harford County, we were able to overcome those and move on to be productive men and women in the community. Once again, a little review. The first class to graduate from the Havre Grace Cullen High School was the class of 1932. And my father was in that class, Mr. Horace Elkins Cromwell. That was the first class to graduate from the Colored High School in 1932. And I said earlier, the class in 1949 represented the last class to graduate with 11th grade education. Due to the growth of the Black community in what I refer to as the Route 40 quarter in Havre Grace, which consists of Edgewood, Aberdeen, Swan Creek, Perriman. Due to the growth of that community, it was necessary to build a larger facility. And in 1954, the Havre Grace College Schools, elementary and high school, were moved to 201 Oakington Road in Swan Creek and were combined and renamed the Havre Grace College School. Havre Grace Consolidated housed all grades from 1st through 12th. It was referred to as Consolidated because, as I said earlier, all the little colored schools, what they were called at the time, along the Route 40 quarter were closed down and combined with the Havre Grace School to form the Havre Grace Consolidated School. And Mr. Leon S. Roy was the principal. When we got to Havre Grace Consolidated, we did have a gym, so we were able to play basketball, but we still didn't have a baseball team or football team. But we made a track around the school, so we were able to run around the school. That was our makeshift track. That didn't hinder us from moving on to accomplish our goals. In fact, I graduated from Havre Grace Consolidated in 1961. I had a young man in my graduating class by the name of Mr. Earl Christie. We attended Maryland State College in Princess Anne, Maryland, now called University of Maryland Eastern Shore. Mr. L. Christie was a gifted athlete and scholar. He played football at Maryland State. In fact, he was so good they built an offense around him. And he was drafted by the New York Jets. And he played in Super Bowl number 3. That was a Super Bowl that the Jets beat the Baltimore Colts. So as I said earlier, even though there were a lot of materials and equipment that we weren't given, even at the Consolidated School, but that didn't stop our young people from excelling. And we've had lawyers, doctors, teachers, educators to graduate who attended Havre Grace Consolidated School. It was in, 1965. Let me back up now. In the 1964-65 school year would mark the final graduating class of the Havre Grace Consolidated School. Due to the so-called integration of black and white school students in the Harford County public school system. At the time, the county renamed Havre Grace Consolidated to Oakington Elementary. The school's current name is Roy Williams Elementary School, after the former principal of Havre Grace Consolidated, the late Mr. Leon S. Roy, and the former principal of Bel Air's Central Consolidated, the late Dr. Percy V. Williams. The proper thing to do should have been to rename Bel Air's Central Consolidated School after Dr. Percy V. Williams, since he was the first principal, black principal at that school. But the Harford County school system didn't want to have a black school named after, or didn't want a school to be named after a black person. So they decided to name the school Hickory Elementary. They could name the school after a tree, but they could not name the school after a human being. Well, I'll say that again. They would name it a tree, hickory, which is a tree. Out of proper respect, it should have been named Dr. Percy V. Williams. The black community had petitioned a name change, so it was decided to change the name of Oakington Elementary to Roy Williams. Roy Williams is not one person. That's two different people. I keep stressing that to everyone because they go to the school and they think Roy Williams is one person. But it's Mr. Leon S. Roy and Dr. Percy V. Williams. Two giants in the education of black children in Harford County. Central Consolidated, I guess you would say, at the northern part of the county, and the Havre Grace at the lower end of the county, was all one community. Part of us lived in the Bel Air area, part of us lived in the Route 40 area. As I said earlier, Everything that was done in our schools, Havre Grace Consolidated and Central Consolidated, was done out of love and not hatred. Also, it was stressed to us to respect ourselves, our elders, and others. We were also planted the concept of the knowledge of yourself, of the knowledge of your kind, and the knowledge of others. The knowledge of self, the knowledge of your kind, the knowledge of others, the knowledge of African American people, Black people, was stressed. Spirituality was stressed. Respect was stressed. The love of your elders, of your ancestors, was stressed. Respect was stressed. As I said earlier, every home was a safe home. And love was everywhere. Spirituality was everywhere. And in spite of the economical shortcomings, the material shortcomings that Harford County schools imposed on us, did not prevent us from learning. It did not prevent us from loving ourselves. It did not prevent us from respecting ourselves. We were always taught that we had to be better. We had to be better than white people. Because in spite of all the things that we accomplished, some of them still feel and felt that they were better than us, in spite of the fact of all that we had to overcome. And the first thing I started off by saying, this message is about love. This message is about respect. This message is about the love of the knowledge of yourself. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can